The name of the presentation is called The Butterfly Effect. And if you guys see, I left little keychains on there if you guys want to take them, or little bracelets and stuff you guys have too. But every time you look at a butterfly, I want you to start thinking about somebody with mental health or addiction. I used to look at them differently. I used to see those people talking to themselves on the street, or living homeless on the street, or asking for money for beer or alcohol or doing drugs, and then I always just judged them, and I had a stigma about them, and it's just like, yeah, they brought that upon themselves. Now when I see them, I think of my son, which kind of changed my heart a little bit too. So that's what we're going to get into today. What is one of the first things you think when you think of mental health or addiction? I know for me, it is their fault, it's their problems, they're the ones who brought it upon themselves. But I think a lot of us think crazy, weak, dangerous, I don't want to be around them, I don't want my family members to be around them. And I feel like that's a lot of truth. And I felt like that's how I felt a lot until it was actually my son and my kid. And then what are you supposed to do? It's like, all right. And I think other people, for me, I was thinking hurt, there's pain, there's brokenness. And I think that's what is really happening down inside. I always say that the addiction, and sometimes even the mental health, but the addiction isn't the problem, it's their solution to the problem. There's something else that's broken, there's something else that's hurting inside of them that is actually causing them to cope with, if it's addiction, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. I really feel like that's the problem. There's something deeper down inside, and that's what we try to get to the root of. And like Mary said, we do have better creative ways. We actually created a studio in Round Rock where we have them come in, and sometimes I'll try to counsel them or mentor them, and they don't want to hear it. They get mad at me, they puff up, they want to fight. But then I'll say, let's go podcast about it. And it shifts the whole mindset, it shifts the whole way that they think about it. We'll actually go in and talk to them and podcast about it or YouTube about it. Next thing I know, they're giving me life advice. They're actually telling me things like, I was like, wow, that was deep. Like, they actually start getting to the root and talking about their problems. So we try to find creative ways to do it. We're not, just a quick disclaimer, we're not licensed therapists, counselors, doctors, anything like that. We're certified coaches, mentors, advocates, liaisons. And that's kind of where we fit into the big picture. There's therapists, doctors, counselors, hospitals that you can take your kids to, but at the very, very bottom, there's coaches, mentors, and people like myself who just have a heart to help. And one of the things I think that makes us unique is that every single one of us that are on our team have the lived experience. We've actually lived through it. We've been through it. We've been on the ground walking through somebody with addiction or mental health. Mary Virginia is part of our team. She's right there. And her grandson and a couple of her children and stuff have been through it. I mean, not just like one time, but like, years and years and years through addiction. And, she just, not to put age on her, but she just turned 81. So she does have the experience of living through it and understanding it. And, Austin's part of our team, and Sierra's part of our team, and even little Esther right there is part of our team. She doesn't have as much experience, but her parents do have a lot of experience too. And that's one thing is, everybody on our team has lived through it, so we understand, we have that empathy for somebody who's going through the mental health, but also going through the addiction, because we believe that it's hard to help somebody if you don't have the heart for them. It's hard to help them if you don't understand them. If you've never been through it, how are you supposed to help them? So that's kind of where we come into play. What is something most people don't think about when you think of mental health and addiction? And this is kind of where our whole company and everything comes into play right here, because for us, it's not just about the individuals, because I feel like the individuals struggling with mental health or addiction, I feel like there's a lot of help for them. But the people that are kind of left behind, that there's not really much help for, that people don't even think about, right, is the actual family. And that's why we are the Family Care Plan, because we actually care about the family, and we want to help the family members of the individual who's going through, not only the mom and the dad, but also the siblings, the little kid, because when my son was going through it, me and his mom at the time were trying so hard to try to figure out how to fix him that we were getting sick and unhealthy ourselves. We were struggling with our own mental health, let alone our little kids that we had. So our oldest son, he's 24 now. He just turned 25, but he also has 3 little brothers. And those little brothers would have to see the mental health officers come in every day. When he was having an episode or he wouldn't sleep for nights, they'd have to be up like, honestly, we would log our little kids in the room with my wife at the time, and then our middle son, the little bit older one, but younger than our oldest son, we would lock his door because I didn't know what was going to happen every night. And at some point, I was just sleeping on the floor, because we all slept upstairs. I was sleeping on the floor in our kids' room, and we put like a baby gate in front of the staircase so I could hear if Michael was about to take off. And then anytime I heard a noise, or if he was about to get in one of the other kids' room and kill them or do something, like we never knew what was going to go on. And that happened for like years and years, and there's nothing that we could do. And honestly, it made me sick, made my wife at the time sick, and I say wife at the time because it did lead to a divorce. And I'm not going to blame all of my son Michael, but it did have a lot to do with that. As I look back, she's remarried and she's happy, and that hurt a little bit for me. We were together for almost 20 years. But as I look back on it now, like, she's happy and healthy, and I'm happy and healthy. When we were together and we were trying to deal with Michael and figure it out, we were all just sick and toxic. Like, we didn't know what to do, and we were blaming each other. And I just really felt like after the divorce, like, there has to be something better. There has to be a better solution to also keep these families together. Because I feel like family is the core of everything, our communities and everything. And we just start breaking apart the family, it just breaks our whole society, I feel like. So that's really where the family comes into play. So who is the family care plan? And like I was just mentioning before, we focus on the families of individuals struggling with mental health and addiction. Not just the individual, we do help the individuals. And when I first started this, I was just going to take on the individuals with mental health, and I was just going to take them on with addiction. I was just going to fix them, I was going to help them. But the truth was, like, you can't really help somebody who doesn't really want help, but the people who are willing to do anything are the moms, the dads, the siblings, the loved ones of the individual struggling. So for me, I was thinking, all right, well, if they're the ones willing to do anything, but sometimes the people in addiction don't want to do anything or can't do anything because they're stuck so far in the addiction, but the mom and dad will almost do anything, and we get almost everything. You'll go in debt, you'll go crazy, you'll do everything just trying to fix your child, fix your loved one. And even if it's not your child, if it's your parent, whoever it is, a lot of times you'll do anything. So what we thought is, what if we could be the support for them? What if we could make them stronger? And it just happened one day. We were helping this family, and we were working with the family, and what I realized by working with them, it actually helped the individual. We had like transformation. I saw like people's lives changing from being an addict to being clean, from struggling with mental health to all of a sudden their mom's crying and tell me, it's the kid that I used to have. It's my son, he's back, or my child's back. And I was just like, wow. Even one kid I'm working with in Washington right now, his mom called me up and she's like, yeah, my son, he's 20 years old. He's suicidal. He's tried to kill himself multiple times. He isolates himself. He won't go hang out. He won't even be social. Like, he won't go hang out with anybody. He used to be a social kid. His friends won't even call him up, and he won't go hang out with them. He won't even like answer their texts or their calls. He stays in his room all day, smokes weed, and tries to hurt himself, and has like bad thoughts. And it's just his depression's up and down. They're like, we don't know what to do, but we saw you in your program. And we're wondering if you could help our son. And he actually was in the school abroad for 7 years, and he's just awesome on the guitar, awesome musician and everything. But he didn't pick up his guitar for 2 years either. He just got in this like hole, and it's just like he couldn't get out of it. And we talked to her son for just one day. First thing I always ask if I'm helping the individual themselves is, do you want help? I ask the parents, but that's just kind of a given. Of course we want help. Like, we don't know what to do. But I asked the individual, like, do you want help? So I started, like, we talked to him, and he said, yeah, he wanted help. Didn't know what to do. He went to his mom said, like, 10 to 15 different therapists, counselors. He just never clicked with him. And I talked to him and just kind of shared my own experience, because personally, I struggle with smoking weed and addiction and other stuff, like a majority of my life, too. So it wasn't just my son who had an addiction. I struggled with that a lot of my life, too. I kind of just shared with him where I was at, and I didn't judge him. I just met him where he was at. I didn't know with all these Bible verses or anything. I just talked with him, like, with my struggles, and we related that lived experience. And his mom texted me the next morning. She said, it's crazy. He picked up the guitar for the first time last time I was playing it. I was like, I was just blown away. And then he wasn't working, he wasn't doing anything. Within 2 weeks, he had 2 jobs, not just one. He was actually even working in the School of Rock. I said, wow, that's amazing, kind of mind-blowing. I checked in with him after the first month just to see how he's doing. He said, I'm actually feeling better than I've ever felt before. He's all, you know what? I haven't taken my meds for 3 weeks, and I feel better than I've ever felt before. And I never tell anybody, like, stop taking your meds. You shouldn't take your meds, they're not good for you. Like, that's on them and the doctor. All I do is try to talk with him and meet him where he's at. But I told his mom, she's like, what? He's tried that before, and he just goes, like, downhill. She couldn't believe it. And I talked to her, and it's been like about 6-7 months since we've been working with him. I talked to her last week on a phone conversation with her and her husband. And I thought they were going to give me well, he's doing good, so I don't think we're going to continue using your services or whatever. So I start telling them, I figured I'd beat them to the punch, right? I'd be like, well, I think we should start tapering him down. And I don't want him just to be dependent on us. I want him to be independent for himself, which is important to us. I just don't want somebody to depend on us like their whole life. Eventually, our whole thing is to get them independent. And his mom's like, well, we could do that, but honestly, me and his dad have been like free that we've been in a long time. And as long as it's working for him, we're good with that. We just want you to know that we don't want to take him off. I mean, if you think that you could taper back and cut back a little bit, that's fine, but like we want to keep going with him. I was like, wow, that's huge. That like meant a lot. I was like, wow, this thing's actually working. This is, just somebody with that lived experience who's had that kid talking to him, and he's going to work every day. The cool thing is, he hasn't smoked weed in 3 months. That's like his choice. I never said, what we try to do is guide them. We don't tell them what to do. We try to guide them to make the right decisions. Because at the end of the day, they're adults and they're grown children, and if we just keep telling them what to do and it doesn't work out, guess whose fault it is? It's my fault, or their parents' fault. But if we guide them to make the right decision, and they make that decision, they actually own it. And that's one thing that we realize is that they'll actually own it and go through with it, because who's to blame if it doesn't work? It's themselves. So, what we're talking about today is the butterfly effect. What is the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect is the idea that small things can have a nonlinear impact on a complex system. Such as the concept is imagined with a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a tornado on the other side of the world, or maybe a butterfly flapping its wings in Antarctica and causing a frost in Texas, right? So, that is, the butterfly effect. But this is the thing that we're talking about. It's not just the butterfly effect, but what is the family effect? What is the family effect? When one family member struggles with mental health or addiction, the entire family system is profoundly affected. And that's one thing that we realized firsthand, right? It isn't just me up here, like, here's this great presentation with these slides, but I've lived this. Like, I realized that one individual's addiction or mental health affects the whole family. But it just doesn't affect the whole family. We were having mental health officers come over to our house every other day. It affects the whole community. And then when he got hit by the car, it also affected, he heard voices, he was running, he got hit by a car going 50 miles an hour. He didn't die, but he does have brain injury and some other stuff. So when that happened, it also affected the guy who hit him, right? And it wasn't just him who it affected the whole community, the whole system. So a lot of times we think, oh, it's their mental health, it's their addiction, it's their fault. They did everything. But when we do that, we don't realize how much it affects everything. Because do you know that a lot of people with addiction actually are the people out there causing crimes? Stealing stuff, robbing, doing all these things just to get their next fix. So when we think it's just their problem and then we don't want to help them, it actually affects our whole community. So it's a shared concept. So the butterfly effect and the family care effect, or the family effect, the butterfly effect and the family effect share a core concept. Small actions can have a significant, unpredictable consequence for all of them, right? So the butterfly effect is a metaphor from the chaos theory, suggesting that a tiny disturbance like a butterfly flapping its wings can set off a chain event leading to large-scale outcomes such as a tornado. It highlights the interconnectedness of the sensitivity of a complex system. The family effect describes how struggles of one family member can deeply impact the entire family system. This can manifest in various ways, including, and this is kind of where we get into role shift, like the roles of the family membership. Sometimes the younger kids have to actually become the parents because the parents are so checked out. Or depending on who's struggling with mental health or the addiction or whatever it is, a family member may take on new roles, caregivers, problem solvers, to cope with struggling members' needs, right? So one of our family members starts struggling, we all start trying to take on different roles. I trying to become a problem solver with something that I may not potentially be able to solve or help somebody with, but now I'm trying to take on this role and I'm trying to fix everybody, and then eventually it causes my own mental health too. So communication breaks down. Conflicts and resentment and withdrawal can strain in relationships. That's what happened in our relationship. Like, it was the kid's mom's fault. It was my fault. It's something that we did. The truth of the matter was, it wasn't anything that we did. It was a choice that our son made. But when you're hurting and you're broken and you don't know what to do, it has to be somebody's fault. So you start breaking, your communication just is not there. Financial strains. A lot of people are spending so much money to try to fix their kids. In and out of rehabs, mental health hospitals, inpatient care, IOPs, PHPs, everything else that they're trying to just fix their child and give help for the loved one that they have. We don't know what to do, so eventually we're just going to go in debt and spend all this money. And the sad part is we try to get help for our son with mental health, right? But rehab with addiction, so we put him in a rehab, they take our money, but then they kick him out because it's mental health. So then we just have to go through that cycle again and again. It's just like, here's our money, kick him out, here's our money, kick him out, here's our money, kick him out. And then eventually we're just going broke and going in debt. So the similarities, both concepts emphasize that the seemingly minor events in an individual struggle can have far-reaching and often unforeseen consequences. They highlight the interconnectedness of systems, whether it's global climate or dynamics within the family. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, is we don't think about, when we think about addiction, when we think about mental health, we don't really think about the family. Nobody really thinks about the family. And guess what? When we were struggling with it, nobody was really thinking about us. Nobody was really thinking about, oh, how are you doing? And I'm not trying to put it off on people or society, but when they did ask, it was more my wife at the time. How are you doing? Nobody ever came and asked me how I was doing. What are you doing? How are you feeling today? They'd ask her and she just kind of answered, oh, we're okay, or we're doing fine, or we're hanging in there, whatever. But especially the fathers and dads, we just have to hold it in. I'm saying it's not easy for anybody, but a lot of times the man gets overlooked. Even when men are asking, they go ask the wife of the child. They don't go out because they expect that the wife is the main caregiver. But it affects the whole family. Like, nobody went and asked my kids how they were doing, my younger kids, hey, how are you guys doing today? Because it was affecting them, like everything in their aspect. Like my one son had eczema so bad, I feel like it had a lot to do with that. Just because eczema a lot of times can do with stress and other things like that. So, studies show that when emotional toll, studies show that when you you have an individual in your household and they're struggling with mental health or addiction, that there's an emotional toll, behavioral impacts, and physical health impacts. A lot of times people will be sick and they won't even know what it is. And they could go to the doctor over and over for themselves, and the doctor would try to give you pills, and that's how I was. I was sick. I didn't know what to do. I held it all and it just gave me stomach issues, and I didn't know what to do for a long time. And that's why I say that I'm healthy now and she's healthy now, and I'd rather us all be healthy than us be just chaotic. But I didn't know what to do for a long time. So the studies show that it takes an emotional toll, behavior impact, and physical health impact. But the crazy thing is, it's not on the individual struggling with the addiction or mental health. Yes, it puts an impact on them too. But what it is it's the family of the individuals, and that's what we realize, is how much toll it actually takes on the family. Not just the mom and dad, the little kids too, or the siblings, or they can be older, younger, whatever, because we all worry about it, or we all stress about it. So the top emotional tolls that it takes: stress, anxiety, and depression. And that's one thing I want to mention today too, is a lot of times when we think mental health, right, we think about somebody talking to themselves on the street. Which, that's like the more extreme, or psychosis or something, to where they talk to themselves or they hear voices or whatever it is. That's one part of mental health. But the broad spectrum of mental health is stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness. Even I think it's in 2022 or 2023, the Surgeon General of the United States declared loneliness as an epidemic. Like, loneliness is such a big thing that the Surgeon General of the United States of America declared loneliness as an epidemic. Like, that's how many people are struggling. Like, so many people have to be struggling with it before the Surgeon General is going to step in and say, hey, this is an epidemic happening in the United States right now. This is what's going on with us. It's affecting everybody so much that they said loneliness, which is part of mental health too. So, Top emotional tools are stress, anxiety, and depression. What about the behavioral impacts? It's eating and sleeping for a lot of us. Not necessarily the individuals, but the family. You guys have a family member struggling with mental health or addiction. How much are you sleeping? How much are you eating? You just don't have an appetite. You're just not feeling like it. You're not sleeping at night because you're worrying all night long, which affects everything else, which impacts your whole physical, mental, emotional, everything. It takes a huge toll on it. Your physical health, stomach, migraines, and unknown illnesses. These are the things people are struggling with that they have no reason why. Like, they'll go to the doctor and it's just like, I don't know why your stomach's hurting. Try this pill, try this pill, try this pill, try this, try this, try this. Change your diet, do this. You can change your diet, but when you're not eating, what is there to change? You can change your diet, but when you're so stressed out, your stomach hurts all the time, what are you supposed to do? Migraine, a lot of people are getting migraines. I realized that even part of my stomach hurting a lot was because I was actually dehydrated. Because I wasn't even drinking. I wasn't eating or drinking at the time. I was just so stressed out. It's like, I can't even focus or think or take care of myself. When you're trying to take care of somebody else so much, you forget to take care of yourself. And then unknown illnesses, a lot of things will just pop up and all of a sudden you'll be sick and you don't know why, but you're still trying to fix your loved one and do all these other things. And this next one, this is standard treatment. There's nothing wrong with this because there is a lot of these things that do work, but they focus on the individual. They don't focus on the whole family unit. They focus on the individual. They diagnose and they prescribe and they have inpatient and outpatient programs. That's what the standard thing is. And there's nothing wrong with that. The thing I love about Mary is she has 2 facilities, but they do offer some therapy and counseling and stuff like that. They also have more of a holistic approach. They don't just look at like, oh, here's this, take a pill. Here's this, do this. Like, that's the thing why I love her and her company the most, is because they look at more like holistic, like the family and everything else. Like, if somebody's prescribing you medicine, like, how is that impacting you? Is your body absorbing it properly? And should they, you know, like, one thing is I don't think they should prescribe unless they have a plan, right? Like, it shouldn't just be like, here's medicine the rest of your life. But that's how a lot of it is. So they focus on the individual, they diagnose, prescribe, and they do inpatient, outpatient. One thing that we can't do is we can't diagnose and prescribe, but we're totally fine with that. We're not going to say don't do what the doctor's saying, but we just don't diagnose and prescribe. I feel like there's enough people out there to do that. There's even online help that you can get that. Also, the inpatient, outpatient, those are pretty good, but I kind of feel like they just do the same thing. It's just a cycle. Like, my son's been through so many inpatient, outpatient programs. It's just the same thing over and over. They say if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, it's insanity. So, I mean, we could say that mental health is insanity, but sometimes us doing the same thing over and over. So, what is a family care plan? We focus on the family. We connect with the mentor, related experience, like lived experience. Connect with resources and guide them to solutions and through solutions. Try to help them find the root of it. Because like we say, like a lot of times, the addiction isn't the problem. It's actually the solution to their problem. So if all we're trying to do is get them off whatever they're doing, but they still hurt inside, or they're still broken, or they still have that, like even mental health a lot of times has to do with something deep down inside. And that's why like therapy works, which is good, and they are able to talk about it, and a lot of times they can't get to some of the roots of it. But even Mary Virginia, she wrote a book and it's all about forgiveness. And a lot of things we were holding on to are unforgiveness, right? If we never really pull out those roots and get rid of it altogether, we're holding on to it. We have to constantly relive that thing over and over and over and just run through our mind. And even for me, like, I wrote a book, we read a lot, we have quite a few resources, but one of the first books we wrote was Renewal of the Mind. And what we realized is we could renew our minds, we could renew our thought patterns, but if our heart still hurt, our emotions still felt the same way, we're going to run into the same problems over and over. So a lot of times it's not just renewing the mind, but it's also the heart and the way that you feel about things, the emotions that are attached to it. So we focus on the family, connect them with a mentor or coach, whatever they feel comfortable with. Some people are like, oh, I have a coach that sounds so cool. Some people are like, I have a mentor that's cool. Whatever it is, we just connect them with somebody who could help them, who could walk them through what they've been through. But we try to find everybody on our team is somebody who's already been through that. It isn't somebody who's like, doesn't have the experience or just the education of it, but the lived experience of it. Somebody who's actually lived through it, made it through, who's made it through addiction, who's made it through mental health, who's like thriving on the other side of it. And are we all perfect? No, we're not perfect. And this is one thing we tell people all the time, like, look, we don't know all the answers, but we can try to figure it out with you. We can walk with you, we can do this together. And we don't claim to know all the answers. We probably will never know all the answers, but can we go do it with you? Can we help you figure it out? I think that's one of the biggest reasons that we have actually transformation and breakthrough with a lot of it. The key to success and our success is guiding, not telling, connecting with lived experience, figuring it out together, passion, and empathy to help. So it's not just the empathy to help because we have the heart because we've been through it, but it's also the passion. It's something that we care about. It's something that we lived through, and now we want to go help other people because that's something that we've been through ourselves. So it's also that passion aspect. And most importantly, it's not just having a passion for us, but we try to help the families and the individuals find a purpose in what they've done, what they've been through. Because if they just can't figure out, like, why did I ever go through all this? Like, they still struggle with that, just going to repeat in their head. And like I said, we are faith-based, right? So for me, it wasn't like God said one day, like, oh wow, you surprised me. Like, I'm just, Mary, that was crazy that you've been through this or that. Or Jacob, this is crazy, right? Like, God already knew from the beginning. God already knew from the beginning that we would go through this, and He allowed it. Not that He caused it, but He allowed it. He must have had a purpose attached to it. So what was that purpose? And that's why we do at the studio. We help people write books, we help people start a podcast, we help people do YouTubing. We try to help people figure out their purpose in it and go help other people. We try to empower them to go help other people. We're going to talk about the mental health effect. So we talk about the butterfly effect, the family effect. What is a mental health effect? Mental illness affects millions of families worldwide. Mental health conditions can significantly impact the family dynamics, including communication, we talked about that. Relationship strength, we talked about that. Emotional, also the guilt aspect of it. And a lot of these are causing mental health for the families. These are some of the main things that are taking a toll on the family. Shame, anger, fear, like, you're feeling like it's your fault. I felt like it's my fault. And then eventually at some point, like, we're blaming each other, like, it's your fault, it's my fault. Like, it's the individual who is struggling, sometimes their fault. A choice that they made. Anger, frustration, towards the affected individual or towards the family or whatever it is. Fear of the relapse, fear of self-harm, fear of suicide or whatever it is. Like, there's that stigma that's still there. Like, I know even Mary Virginia, right? Like, her grandson struggled with a lot of addictions, tried to commit suicide like 10 times or something like that. Stole from his parents, stole from their house, took all their stuff, took all these things. He was telling me one time on a podcast, he actually stole his parents' TV from their bedroom, went to the pawn shop, but instead of just like, oh, it's gone forever, he actually just left the pawn ticket right there where the TV was, so if they wanted to go get it, they could. But like these things that they're doing, right? So now he's healthy, he's good, he's actually one of our coaches, and like, this kid's amazing. He's like 27, 28, somewhere around there. But he's an amazing guy now, like he's an amazing young man now, like total different person than he was, right? But his parents still have that mindset sometimes, the fear that he's gonna go do it again. It's hard for a parent, like, I had to go pick up my son, like even for like holidays and stuff, I was picking him up, bringing him to the house, I'm just thinking like, here we go again, here we go again, here we go. It's hard to get over that mindset of who they were and what they've done. So the addiction effect. Emotional toll, anxiety, stress, constant worry, fear, uncertainty about the addicted individual's safety, health, and well-being. Like Mary Virginia used to say, they get a call in the middle of the night from him, and they want to know what call it was. Is he dead? Did he die? Is he in jail now? Is he somewhere else? Like, we don't know what calls we're going to get, so it's just that fear, constantly living on fear of what's going to happen. Then we have the addiction effect, the depression, guilt and shame. We have the relationship strain, communication breakdown, loss of intimacy, and then the role reversal, financial hardship. That's one of the biggest things. I know so many families in debt because of their loved one, either bailing them out or the rehabs or everything else. Like, average inpatient is about $15,000 a month. Your own insurance is only going to cover it so many times. So, $15,000 a month, and a lot of times what are you going to do? Just keep them in there for 30 days and think that they're just going to magically be fixed or healed. It doesn't happen. Loss of income because you're trying to help them so much and you have to give up time to go get them out of rehab, out of jail, out of whatever it is. There's the loss of income, then the legal issues. All these things piling up, and all these empty promises too that go with this. Bound me out, I promise I won't do it again, just for them to get out and really just go do it again. Impact on the children, emotional and behavior problems. Children may experience anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, behavior problems, and difficulties in school. So when our family struggled, our whole family struggled, it wasn't just at home, it was in school, community, everywhere else too. So witnessing abuse, increased risk of future addiction. So the kids that are actually living with somebody who's an addict or struggling with mental health actually are at higher risk to struggle with the same thing themselves, which is crazy. Social isolation, eventually they feel like they can't fit in, they can't have friends come over, they can't do anything. That's what our kids felt like for a long time. Nobody could come over because we have our oldest son that's struggling. We don't know what's going to happen. The cop didn't come over that night. Plus all the neighbor families are like, well, you're not going over their house. We don't know what they're doing. The cops are always over there. Me as a parent, if a cop is always over at somebody's house, I wouldn't let them go over. I'd probably even question if I want their kid to come over to my house. Because is that, is it contagious? Like, a lot of times I'll tell people like, oh, my son has mental health and addiction. A lot of times they're like, oh, well, especially at church or something like, I don't want to talk to him. It's probably contagious. It's like, well, it's not contagious, but probably some struggle that does go with it. Withdrawal from social activities, family activities, and social audience may be disruptive. Crazy thing is, a lot of times your own family judges you when you have your child. They want to give you these solutions, or sometimes you're just sick of how they're judging you, the solutions they're trying to give you, whatever it is, just so eventually you're like, I'm not even going to go meet with our family. We're not even going to invite our own family over anymore. The family care plan effect, the ripple of a positive change. So, butterfly effect is a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a tornado over here, right? But this is the family care effect, and this is the family care plan effect. A ripple of positive change. The one individual, once they get healthy, can help other individuals get healthy. Just like we were talking about, like once we get help Mary Virginia's grandson get healthy, go help other people. When I can help, myself get healthy, I can help other people, so on and so forth. The family care plan effect describes a powerful phenomenon where a family's journey of healing and recovery inspires and supports other families facing similar changes. It's a beautiful illustration of how compassion and shared experience can create a ripple effect of positive change within a community. And that's even like Mary Virginia, she's lived through it, Austin's lived through it, Sierra's lived through it. Now we can go help other people. And that's what more the family care plan effect is. In essence, the family care plan effect reminds us that our individual actions can have a profound and far-reaching impact on the world around us. By choosing to support and uplift others, we can create a ripple effect of positive change that extends far beyond our own experiences. This is one thing I know, a hurt person hurts people. A broken person breaks people. But I have realized this, that a healed person can help other people heal. And that's one of the things that, is really important to us at the family care plans, that we've lived through it, we've healed through it, and now we can help other people heal through it. So welcome to the family care plan effect, and this is who we are. We are a family care plan. If you guys want more information, you guys can visit our website, Family Care Plan.